AskReddit by MLKKK. Was there anyone who tried to warn us about something that happened but we didn't listen? Who? Tried to tell mom she was sick 5 years ago. Miss you, mom. Same. Had her convinced to go to the hospital on Wednesday. Sister talked her out of it. Thursday she went but had to leave due to sitting so long in the waiting room. She suffered from chronic pain. Friday, her home nurse ignored the fact that she couldn't get a blood pressure to register, that she was confused, and her skin was turning yellow. Saturday I got home. I had left Wednesday night for business, and she was in the hospital. I sat with her until I had to go home to leave Sunday morning. She died that Sunday from sepsis due to an untreated UT that moved to her kidney and then her blood. Harry Markopoulou notified the SEC 3 times that whatever Bernie Madoff was doing wasn't legit and should be investigated, and all 3 times he was ignored. He talks about it in his book No One Would Listen. Check it out if you want to see a real facepalm example of government incompetence. Harry Markopoulou noted Bernie Madoff's return on investments were mathematically impossible. Nobody generates the exact same return, 14.1%, year after year in the stock market. They were building a big baseball stadium in Wisconsin and it was a considerably windy day. The crane operator was tasked with lifting a large structure but refused, stating dangerous gusts. The site foreman dismissed the crane operator and called in one who would do the job with no pushback. Well, the crane tipped over with a load and workers were killed. Foreman and second operator were arrested, and the first operator won a wrongful termination lawsuit. You're referring to the Big Blue disaster. Roger Boisjoli, https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Roger_Boisjoli engineer involved with the space shuttle program who warned his superiors 4 months prior to the Challenger disaster that launching in cold weather could cause the O-rings to fail. Care to guess what caused the Challenger disaster? And for his trouble, he was a pariah to future employers. Punished for his integrity. Turkish Airlines Flight 981. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Turkish_airlines_flight_981 would never have happened if McDonnell Douglas and Convair had heeded Dan Applegate's https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Dan_Applegate warning about the cargo doors coming open during flight. He wrote a memo after the non-fatal American Airlines Flight 96, https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/American_Airlines_flight_96 advising that the doors had design flaws which would cause them to show as properly latched even when they weren't. If nothing were done, he said it would lead to catastrophic failure that would likely result in the loss of the plane. However, the fixes would be expensive and no one agreed who would eat the cost, so proper upgrades were put off. Instead, they tried implementing cheaper band-aid solutions that would ultimately prove ineffective. I remember watching that instead of fixing the issue they put a small window for the baggage handler to check if the door was latched properly upon closing. Unreal how they shifted enormous responsibility to the lowest paid worker. Thankfully, the courts told them to pound sand after the crash when they tried to blame the baggage team. Ignaz Semmelweis, often described as the father of hand washing. In the 1800s he discovered that infant maternal mortality could be drastically reduced by doctors washing their hands between patients. He was largely ignored and his book got absolutely slated. This is supposed to have contributed to him having a mental breakdown and he died in a psychiatric hospital. Not just between patients, between working on cadavers and delivering babies. 12 TRW engineers resigned their positions the morning of the Challenger incident in protest against risking the flight. NASA launched anyway. Should have listened. I genuinely did not know this, but it puts the tragedy in an entirely different light for me. Deleted. Otto von Bismarck in the 1880s I believe said that when the Great European War came it would come out of some damn foolish thing in the Balkans. Edit Colleen Rowley warned her FBI superiors in the 1st of June that names on their jihadi watch list were taking flying lessons but not interested in learning how to land. Her report didn't get read until October. I think you mean Colleen Rowley. Cynthia Rowley appears to be some sort of fashion designer. H.G. Wells said he wanted his epitaph to be "I told you so. You damned fools." In The Land Ironclads, 1903, he had written about a stalemated war fought by trench warfare that was broken by the invention of tanks, predicting what would happen in WW1. In The War in the Air, 1907, he predicted how airplanes would be used in war, including aerial bombardment of cities, and saw his predictions come true in WW2. Nervously side-eyes a copy of War of the Worlds. Bismarck warned the ruling German monarch of his time that Germany's status in Europe and the relative peace of the continent would last for only a short time. After his forced resignation, Bismarck said, "Jena came 20 years after the death of Frederick the Great. The crash will come 20 years after my departure if things go on like this." 20 years later, Germany loses WWI and almost collapses. It will be some damn fool thing in the Balkans that sets it off. Pearl Jam warned us about Ticketmaster years ago. Nobody listened. Now we're stuck with them, and only them. The sad thing is when I bought my ticket to see Pearl Jam at Hyde Park in July via Ticketmaster. Harry Markopoulos. He figured out what Madoff was up to, and the sex still blew him off for years, presumably because the proof he was presenting required math to understand. Harry's motivations really spoke to me. His boss said, "Hey, I need you to invent a financial product exactly like this one that this Madoff character is selling. He is taking a lot of our customers." Harry went on to use math to prove it was either one of two things. Front running, where if you are a market maker and you have a list of orders from your clients you can sneak your orders in just before since you know it will change the price right after. This does not scale to the levels Madoff was claiming as profits to his clients, but at the time it was considered an option. They did not know how much he was claiming he was profiting across all his investors. The second possibility was just a straight up Ponzi scheme. He told his boss it was not mathematically possible to do what Madoff was doing, and the boss blew him off because he thought Harry just didn't want to work hard. Li Wenliang. https://en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/li_Wenlian () a Chinese doctor who tried to warn people through his private social media about COVID-19 in the 30th of December 2019. Was summoned by the police in China for spreading disinformation. The Chinese government had been the first COVID deniers. https://wgbh/frontline/article/age-timeline-of-covid-1/cover-19/closed bracket during the virus's earliest stage and contributed greatly to the global pandemic. Li died of COVID in Wuhan on the 7th of February 2020. I remember watching a clip on Reddit in December of 2019. The caption was something like "Chinese government building hospitals overnight" with a time-lapse video of buildings being built, non-stop, day and night. It was on. Damn, that's interesting. At the time, I wondered what the significance was and considered it not interesting at all. Flash forward less than 90 days and none of our lives are ever going to be the same. John O'Neill. He worked in the FBI as an anti-terrorist officer. After the car bombing of the World Trade Center in 1993, he remained convinced that Al-Qaeda would try to finish the job. The FBI convinced itself that it was over, and O'Neill, who kept at the investigation, was passed over for promotions to the point he wound up quitting the FBI. They thought he was too obsessed with it. He took a job managing security at the WTC and lost his life on the 11th of September. Great doco about him and the security failures he wanted to prevent here. Frontline. The man who knew. https://www.youtube.com/watch?mark pbxpqwggq5u He died saying I fucking knew it. In 2005, Courtney Love was asked what advice she'd give young, up-and-coming actresses. She said if Harvey Weinstein invites you to a private party at his Four Seasons hotel room, don't go, and for whatever reason, you didn't see her in many movies after that. Pretty sure she even said she would get blacklisted for saying it. Edit, just found the video from 2005 and she said I'll get libeled if I say it. https://yahoo.be/zbvsmomabh8 Every single junior officer working in Afghanistan for the last 20 years who universally called the ANA a worthless pose army and their government a hollow, dead money pit. I came home so disillusioned. It seemed like we took warlords and called them governors and said yay, democracy. Sinead O'Connor. Suddenly a cover-up at the Catholic Church of child abuse doesn't seem so silly. She was speaking from personal experience having attended a Magdalene laundry in her teenage years. https://www.irishpost.com/news/an-open-letter-from-sinead-o'connor-on-report-3212 Nikola Tesla. There was a book he wrote, a pamphlet really, called The Problem of Increasing Human Energy. https://www.amazon.com/problem-increasing-human-energy-harnessing/dp/16052000956 where he talked about slowing down the process of burning carbon until we understood it better. There were a few people around the end of the 19th, start of the 20th century who understood the huge amounts of CO2 we were emitting into the atmosphere was essentially a huge experiment, and the consequences could be severe. Svante Arrhenius is a famous example. One of NASA's engineers warned them that Challenger would explode due to frozen O-rings. They ignored him and launched anyway. I have a foreboding of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time, when the United States is a service and information economy, when nearly all the manufacturing industries have slipped away to other countries, when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues, when the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what's true, we slide, almost without noticing, back into superstition and darkness. The dumbing down of America is most evident in the slow decay of substantive content in the enormously influential media, the 30-second sound bites, now down to 10 seconds or less, lowest common denominator programming, credulous presentations on pseudoscience and superstition, but especially a kind of celebration of ignorance. Carl Sagan. How prescient. I work in broadcast media and the amount of commercial breaks created stuffed into a program to cover all the sales inventory and promos is crazy. I think we've really created a sort of ADHD in the whole country with this style of TV. Those 30-second sound bites as he calls them. It's such a big part of the business now it'll never change. While not to the degree that it ended up being, but Eddie Murphy took a shot at Bill Cosby's holier-than-thou attitude in his comedy special Raw in 1987 during the height of The Cosby Show. Hannibal Buress, the stand-up comedian, had a joke in his act that talked about Bill Cosby years before it really came out. It was an open secret in the stand-up community. Cassandra of Troy was pretty spot on about that wooden horse. Cassandra had the gift of accurately predicting the future, and the curse that no one would believe her. You've got to admire the sheer level of spite and imagination that the Greek gods could muster. President George Washington, in his address when leaving office, he warned against the danger of a two-party system in future politics. He felt that several parties on equal footing would be better, especially in presidential elections. The more legitimate choices, the better. Eisenhower and the military-industrial complex too. The guy who predicted the levees would collapse in a strong hurricane. Category 2 or 3. Not 5 as they predicted. He knew the tide surges would destroy New Orleans and predicted it down to 1% the deaths, damage, destruction and water damage. No one believed him, and he had computer simulations and printouts he tried to show Congress and tried to tell them to prepare for the worst, including tents for shelter. He was laughed at and later fired. 2 years before Katrina. Seth MacFarlane has made fun of sleazy people in Hollywood 4 years before the Me Too movement. Help, I just escaped Kevin Spacey's house, says Stewie running naked through a crowd of people. Spacey's basement, but yes, I remember that one too. Lots of experts warned about the FTX fraud. The writing was on the wall. Idiots chose to ignore the red flags and made huge investments. Common people was lured in by the perceived trust. There are people, like me, screaming that Tether is exactly the same, and it's still fucking there with the better part of $100 billion in assets. Tether is not backed with real assets, and when it explodes, crypto will be in some real big shit. Billy Mitchell. He predicted a Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in the 1920s, and warned the Navy that they needed to spend more money on air defenses and less on ships. Thought you meant the Donkey Kong guy for a second and was confused. Jason Salami, epidemiologist at USF. No one knows him, that's cool. I was working on medical ML research, glioblastoma at the time, and was asked to help analyze some data about a new virus in China. In the middle of January we had a research meeting, and Dr. Salami said, I don't like this one. I have a bad feeling about SARS.